Because I cannot access his office, they told me it's now a crime scene. I cannot access his home. So I reported to the DCI that these documents and this evidence was in the possession of the lawyer. So I have requested him. I have requested the DCI that whatever they recover in the process of the investigation to give me an opportunity, because the evidence, my evidence, the lawyer put it in an A4 envelope. We sealed it together and he wrote my name on top of it. So my name is Captain Kongo Muigai. I'm the chairman of the Kenya Cultural Center, and I'm also the patron of the National Council of Elders. Today, I speak with a very, very heavy heart. I had given a press conference on Saturday about my case that is ongoing involving my companies, Bejo Amalgamated Limited versus Kenya Commercial Bank. And I had narrated how Kenya Commercial Bank sold our property valued at 3.5 billion. They sold it for 70 million. And they have never given us accounts up to today. I said the person who bought the farm, his name is Kamlesh Rahul, he bought the farm at 70 million in 2007, and the next year he sold it to the Shah community for 3.5 billion. And this is the money that has been used to bribe judges of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, and the High Court over the years, and also to bribe officials of Kenya Commercial Bank so as to sell our property at a throwaway price. During my press conference, I mentioned that my lead lawyer in this case is Professor Bombu Kyalo. And it is with a very heavy heart that I learned yesterday in the evening, another of the lawyers who is also acting for me called me and informed me that Advocate Bob Kyalo had been shot somewhere in Langata. It came as a big shock to me. Advocate Kyalo is a humble man, very humble, very affable. Somebody who is soft-spoken, never had him shout at any, and never seen him argue with anybody. And it's a despicable act to kill a man like that. I don't know who killed him or why. I cannot pretend to know that. But what I can state is, in my statement, I had said Bob Kyalo is my lawyer. And indeed, Bob Kyalo was one of my witnesses who was going to give evidence about how various judges have been bribed with a lot of money. And he was also the custodian of very, very crucial evidence. He was holding 4 affidavits from our witnesses who either participated or were privy to the giving of bribes to the judges. He was also a custodian of 2 audio recordings, which were actually recorded when these judges were being bribed. It's a sad day, indeed a very sad day for this country, that we can lose somebody of the caliber of Bob Kyalo. He was a professor in law. I will not blame anybody because I really don't have an idea who killed him. But I have accused a cartel made up of the Shah community, Kenya Commercial Bank, and various judges in the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal and the High Court, that they conspired. I can call it a criminal gang. They conspired and they committed serious crimes. This was one of the men who was driving this case together with the evidence. Today, I reported to the DCI, Director of Criminal Investigations. Because I cannot access his office, they told me it's now a crime scene. I cannot access his home. So I reported to the DCI that these documents and this evidence was in the possession of the lawyer. So I have requested him. I have requested the DCI that whatever they recover in the process of the investigation to give me an opportunity, because the evidence, my evidence, the lawyer put it in an A4 envelope. We sealed it together and he wrote my name on top of it. So I described the parcel to the DCI and I asked them if they come across such a package to please contact me so I can go and identify it. First of all, I want to send my condolences together with my family. Advocate Bob Kyalo, we are related by marriage very closely. So he was my lawyer and he was also family. And I am saddened, and I said my family and my condolences to his family. We of course visit them. But I will say this. This was a young man with young children. If that criminal organization that I have named is associated with his death in whichever way, I'll pray to the living God that he pays them blow by blow so that they don't find peace. Neither do their children or grandchildren find peace. Because I think it is the depth of evil to kill somebody because of monetary gain. I'm not saying I know who killed him. I'm just saying I had just exposed a criminal gang and I had said this is the lawyer who is leading this matter. So I feel it might be connected. But I'll leave the rest to the police. I've already reported to the police my connection with him. So I'll leave it to the police and we'll give them time to investigate and tell us the truth. I hope, well, my case will not stop. You see, my case, killing that lawyer does not help anybody. Because my case is one. There is no consent judgment. Right? It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't, even me, they can kill me. But unless they can produce that judgment, which they rely on, which they even quote today, in their reply today, the judiciary spokesman, Mr. Demo, is saying there is a judgment entered on the 4th of May 1992 in the High Court case number 1219 of 1992. So if that judgment is not found, it doesn't matter who they kill, they're not going to get out of that trap. But all the said and done, my case, my allegations against the bank, Kenya Commercial Bank, the judiciary, the 11 judges, 5 judges from the Supreme Court and 6 judges from the Court of Appeal, and the Shah community still stands. I still stand by those allegations. I have seen a statement by the spokesman of the judiciary, somebody called Demo. And it is flabbergasting, because he says they deny every allegation I have made. They deny every allegation I have made. And he goes to explain what happened. And once again, he talks about a consent judgment dated 4th of May, 1992, in High Court, Civil Case number 1219 of 1992. He says that is a consent judgment that made them sell my farm. And that is a consent judgment that settled this matter. And once again, I am asking the judiciary, and I'm asking Kenyans to support me on this. Let them produce that judgment. I am challenging the judiciary. They have written clearly in their statement by their spokesman that we entered into a consent judgment which settled all these issues. So I'm challenging them, as I have done over the last 30 years, produce this judgment, produce this consent judgment. What is so difficult? This is a physical document. I have said the judge who was supposed to have recorded it, Justice Erastus Githinji, he has written a ruling, an official ruling saying there is no judgment like that. The police have investigated and said there is no judgment like that. The registrar of the High Court has written and said there is no judgment like that. The Law Society of Kenya has written and said the lawyer who is purported to be my lawyer, Mr. Menye, did not have a practicing certificate on that day of that judgment. So it is obvious there is no judgment. But even today, in the statement that they have issued today, they are still talking about a consent judgment which does not exist. So I will not cease, I will not stop until they produce that judgment to silence me. My name is Captain Kongo Muigai. I'm the chairman of the Kenya Cultural Center and also the patron of the National Council of Elders. There's a story I've seen in the social media about me and my company, Benjo Amalgamated Limited, and I would like to state so that for clarity, people can understand where it's coming from. In 1989, I applied for a loan from KCB through my company, Benjo Amalgamated Limited, to start a floriculture business for growing flowers to export to Europe. The bank approved a loan of 23 million, and they asked me to put initial capital of 13 million to buy the farm, prepare the farm, irrigate it. And I did all that, and I grew 25 acres of flowers. But when the time came for export, which is the most expensive part of this project, we were in the middle of fighting for Section 2A, Mount Party, and I was on the side of fighting for Mount Party, and therefore the government was not very happy, and they stopped my loan. They had only disbursed 9 million out of 23. They stopped the loan, and they foreclosed it. They started demanding payment. I went to court and sued them for breach of contract through High Court case number 1219 of 1992. Before the case proceeded, the file got lost, and I applied for the file to be reconstructed. I filed my plaint, my chamber summons, my affidavit, but the bank said verbally that the matter had been settled through a consent judgment where I agreed that I owe the bank and I'll pay them. I protested because there was nothing like that. The order was supposed to have been recorded by Justice Erastus Githinji. We went to him through an application, and he dismissed. He said there's no judgment like that. But the bank went to the Court of Appeal before Justice Kwach, Justice Tunoi, and Justice Bosile. And they ruled that Indeed, that judgment is there. Although they didn't see it, they said I must have stolen the file. And they said that without any investigations, and they said that the order exists. I came to find out later through a worker from the lawyer who was representing the bank, that bench was given 1 million shillings through Justice Quach, and the money was delivered at the Hilton Hotel basement parking, and that's why they ruled like that. After that, my father, I had given the bank 2 securities, my farms, and my father had given a guarantee with his coffee farm. And in 1995, my father said, I'll pay off the 9 million you say you are owed, so you can release my farm. And he paid 6 million. The bank wrote him and said, we have received, now you owe 3 million. But unfortunately, my father died. That was in July. My father died in August. And my mother wrote back to the bank, asking them to state the final account. And to our surprise, 4 months later, the bank wrote and said the outstanding sum is 44.3 million. From 3 million to 44 million in a period of 4 months. And that's when I went to court to challenge that. And the matter went before Justice Lanaora, now a Supreme Court judge. And we argued, how can this? But Justice Lanaora said he cannot interfere. It's a leader, borrow a matter. And later, I learned through the same employee of the bank's lawyer that Justice Lanaora received 1 million shillings in a parking lot of some supermarket, which I can disclose in camera, and that's why he ruled like that. And after that, the bank got emboldened, and they sold, instead of selling my securities, the 2 farms that belonged to Benjo, which was enough to cover the loan, they sold Mwiri Coffee Estate, which was just a guarantor. Mwiri Coffee Estate is 450 acres and a coffee, with 2 factories and buildings, over 100 head of cattle. It was valued, first value was 3.5 billion, but the bank sold it for 70 million to somebody called Kamresh Rahul of BD Limited. 70 million, that was equivalent to 10 acres. That's what they sold our farm, 450 acres. And Kamresh Patni, a year later, sold the same farm to the Shah community for 3.5 billion. The reason of this forceful takeover is because the Shah community want to relocate to Mangu. I think parklands had become crowded, so they want to relocate to Mangu, and our farm is right in the middle of that plan. So all this money that is being used to bribe judges and officers of the KCB is coming from that community, the Shah community. So after that, we challenged that sale in court, and the case was heard by Justice Reddy, the late Justice Joyce Kaminwa, God bless her soul. And she said, she told them to bring accounts, and the accounts that the bank brought, although I opened my account on 4th of April 1989, they brought accounts from September 1991 with an opening balance of balance brought forward. Justice Kaminwa ruled and said this is fraudulent, this sale is fraudulent, and she recommended that the police take over the case. The bank rushed to court, to the Court of Appeal, and made an application to dismiss Kaminwa's judgment, and it was heard by Justice Nabuye, Justice Makadia, Justice Kathurima Muinoti. They dismissed Kaminwa's ruling and reinstated the non-existent consent judgment, although they didn't see it. I have no evidence that money changed hands, but your guess is as good as mine for a judge to say a judgment exists that does not exist. And from there, I decided to go to the Supreme Court to have this matter settled. So I went before the Court of Appeal to seek for leave, and the matter was heard by retired Justice GBM Kariuki, Supreme Court Judge now, William Ouko, and the President of the Court of Appeal, Daniel Musinga. They dismissed, although they agreed that indeed the matter of a lost record is a matter of public interest, they said a consent order exists and therefore they cannot interfere with it. They did not cite that consent order. It was not produced in court. So they refused, they denied permission to go to the Supreme Court. I had filed under Benjo. I filed the same application under Mwiri Coffee Estate, and it went before Justice Kiage, Justice Jamila Mohammed, and Justice Agnes Morgo. And this bench agreed with me that indeed a matter of lost court record is a matter of public interest, and they asked the apex court, the Supreme Court, to pronounce themselves what should happen if a court record goes missing. So we went to the Supreme Court before the bench of CJ Emeritus Willie Mutunga, DCJ Emeritus Kalpana Rawal, Justice Joki Dongo, Justice Mohammed Ibrahim, and Justice Jackton Ojoang. They agreed with us about the missing record. It's a matter of public interest. But again, even them, they reverted and said there is a consent that was entered, and it said you owe the bank, but they did not see that consent. My lawyer in that court was Senior Counsel Paul Muite, and he challenged them. He said, where is this judgment? And they asked the bank lawyer, Mr. Philip Nyachoti, and Mr. Philip Nyachoti admitted that the judgment does not exist. But regardless, when they came to deliver their judgment, they said, yes, this judgment exists. And they said, we cannot interfere. This is the position. And I came to learn from a friend of mine, who was my classmate, that this bench of the Supreme Court was bribed with $3.5 million. And the money was paid in Jersey, and it was paid through the husband of Justice Kaupana Rawal, Mr. Rawal, for the benefit of the Supreme Court. I didn't feel satisfied, so I applied to have a 5-judge bench of the Court of Appeal to hear this matter again. Again, we went to court, and I was represented by Professor Bob Kyalo, who is a renowned lawyer. And when we went to court, he categorically stated, we are here, we want that judgment produced before court. We have no other arguments, we just want that judgment. Again, the lawyer of KCB, Philip Nyachoti, admitted that judgment does not exist. But when they delivered their judgment, the 5 judges, Newton Makadia, Mukathurima Muinoti, Orekantai, Mativo, and Tuyot, they ruled that indeed that judgment is there. They used the word that this judgment is in all the records of this court. And I came to learn through the same friend of mine that they received a bribe of $2.5 million, which was paid in the firm of a prominent lawyer here in Nairobi. My witnesses are ready and willing to give evidence in camera if this is required. And that's why I went to the Judicial Service Commission and I made a petition that they call me, I give my evidence, then they call the judges to explain why or where this judgment is. I was surprised after about a year sitting on the petition, the Judicial Service Commission has written to me. They didn't call me to give evidence, but they have written to me and told me that The judges can use their judicial discretion, and that judge and that what they said is what is there. So I'm wondering, do they have discretion to tell a lie? If a judge says a judgment exists and it is a lie, does judicial discretion cover that? And that's why I have decided to talk about this matter, because I don't want it to be distorted. Anybody who wants a reference, please come to me, especially the media. If you have any questions, if you have any clarification, I have all the documents and I have the names of my witnesses. So thank you very much. Well, I must say I was delighted to hear the president call out corruption in this country, especially the judiciary. And I must say, as long as the judiciary is corrupt, we cannot deal with corruption, because they are the ones who are supposed to arrest corruption. And I can tell Kenyans, our judiciary is corrupt to the core. It is corrupt, and they take money openly, and they make judgments the way they want. I know in this country, nobody can point a finger at the other person and call them corrupt. The only Kenyan who is not corrupt is a person who has no opportunity to be corrupt, either to give or take. Otherwise, we are all corrupt. But the judiciary, the parliamentarians, if they become corrupt, we can vote them out after 5 years. But the judiciary, nobody can touch them. So they're there punishing people. I have seen people die in the courts. Somebody just collapses because of the injustice. And that's why I have fought for those 33 years. I don't fight for me. It's for those people I know. People have talked to me over the years. When you are in the corridors of courts, that's all we do. Everybody gives a story about their case. And I have seen people suffer. I have seen people suffer. I have seen people get sick and die. So I am prepared. I'm prepared to put my life on the line to make sure that nobody will face the kind of injustice that I have faced.